And to the read, where I'm talking about something I've read that I think really helps make sense of something we're trying to get to grips with. And tonight, a very unusual choice of someone to talk to. You might remember Helen Dale. In 1995, she was the youngest person ever to win Australia's top book award, the Miles Franklin, for a bestseller, The Hand That Signed the Paper, which, among other things, was about Ukrainians fighting for the Nazis in World War II, the reasons they had for that, or thought they had. Now, that suddenly became Australia's greatest literary scandal because it turned out that Demidenko is not actually Ukrainian herself, as she claimed, and then she was attacked for actually being too sympathetic to Ukrainian Nazis. Today, of course, the Ukrainians are our heroes, although Putin supporters keep screaming, they're Nazis, they're Nazis. And the strange thing is that the best piece I have read on exactly this topic is an essay by that very same Helen, actually Helen Dale, and it's called World War II's Unfinished Business. This essay, by the way, also reminds us that Helen Dale is indeed a terrific writer. The Miles Franklin judges got that bit exactly right. Helen Dale, great to catch up with you again. We've met each other a couple of times since, but one interesting fact in your terrific essay, and I congratulate you again on this, is that the city of Kharkiv in eastern Russia, in eastern Ukraine, that Russia is bombing to bits, a city that the Ukrainians are defending like heroes. That was actually founded by a Welshman. Tell us about that.
Yes, that was John Hughes in 1869, and the city then was more mixed. It was more of a mixture of Russians and Ukrainians, and of course neither group can say or could easily say his name. But so they turned it into Yuzivska or Husovska, or they tried to say it. This combination of sounds doesn't exist. It does a bit in Ukrainian, but not really in Russian. And that was in 1869. And because they didn't have trained factory managers, a large numbers of them actually immigrated to Kharkiv, what is now Kharkiv, to Donetsk. So it's not Kharkiv, it's Donetsk, which is in one of the so-called autonomous oblasts. Yeah,
Donetsk.
Yeah, but they
that's right, the oblast.
Welsh, Donetsk. They migrated there to run the factories in this new town, but it was not called Donetsk at that point. And during the Second World War, it was actually called Stalino. So if you watch the Agnieszka Holland film, Mr. Jones, who was about the very courageous Welsh reporter who actually exposed the reality of the Ukrainian famine, which Ukrainians call Holodomor, extermination by starvation, that means in Ukrainian. He was also Welsh. He wrote for the Western Mail, which is a still existing newspaper that you can go and buy in Wales. And it was called Stalino then, if you watch that film. You can get it from Amazon for pennies, so I strongly recommend it. But the point I was trying to...
Donetsk, right? This is one of the areas that Putin says is really Russian, is already stolen part of Donetsk. He's saying, that's ours. He did that in 2014, and now he's trying to get the rest. And he's saying, look, the whole area is anyway, run by Nazis. Ukraine's run by Nazis, and what is going on now? This is a denazification policy. Remember how the Ukrainians were the worst Nazis. What is the basis for that attack?
Okay, I'll try to explain this in about 3 minutes because it's quite complex history. Ethnically and linguistically, there are differences between East and West Ukraine. That's the basic theme of The Hand That Signed the Paper. And West Ukraine has always had a more and if you want to say West Ukraine, this is very crude, but just draw a line down the middle that goes through Kyiv, basically from top to bottom. Now, there are differences of detail there, but that will help you. It's really follow the rivers. There's people in West Ukraine more likely to speak Ukrainian rather than Russian as their mother tongue. Ukrainian's quite a different language, has quite different culture and literary traditions and loan words drawn from Polish and Hungarian and that kind of thing. And was also oriented more to the West. It was historically part of the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth and then the Austro-Hungarian Empire. So if you go to a city like Lviv, it looks like Vienna. And it's actually a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It's like Edinburgh. The entire city is a UNESCO World Heritage Site because it's so beautiful. It was one of the jewels of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. And so that group of Ukrainians were the ones who were much more likely, statistically, to collaborate with the Nazis during the Second World War. The hand that signed the paper is about this phenomenon. The book has not changed. It's flying off the shelves again because people want background. But it was geographically concentrated, this collaboration, in a particular part of the country for specific historical reasons. In what is now East Ukraine, whilst there were Ukrainian speakers, many of whom were exterminated during the Holodomor in 1932 and 1933, it's always been much more Russian in orientation, and it is a gross slur on people in Kharkiv in particular to say that they were once Nazis. I can't be confident and say nobody from Kharkiv or Donetsk or whatever collaborated with Hitler. That would inevitably that someone would go through German military records and prove that I was wrong. But the rates of collaboration with Hitler were very low there, and the overwhelming majority of people in those areas in East Ukraine, in those cities, fought heroically for the Soviet Union against Nazi aggression. So that's the first lie, pretending that the entire country is exactly the same. The second lie that Putin is engaging in is to pretend that people in West Ukraine, the ones where there were high rates of collaboration with the Nazis, have not changed. And the way I have had to sort of express this to people in Britain, where I've been talking to the British press a lot about this, is to talk about Volodymyr Zelensky. Now, this is a man who is Jewish, who does not look like the majority of people in West Ukraine. One of the reasons why Hitler liked them is because they have significant Norse ancestry, so they're tall and they're fair. You look at the mayor, you look at someone like Vitaly Klitschko, the big, tall, fair boxer who's the mayor of Kyiv. Yeah, this kind of thing.
Former world heavyweight boxer, him and his brother.
Yes, yeah. So to say Volodymyr Zelensky is this Jewish Nazi is just extraordinary and bonkers. But it's also to suggest that Ukrainians as a totality, but particularly in West Ukraine, have not changed since 1941. Now, let me just say, if they still had in West Ukraine those attitudes that were widespread in 1941 towards Jews, Volodymyr Zelensky would not only not have won the election, he wouldn't have been running and would have stood a very good chance of being face down in a ditch with a bullet in it. So this really does show you that this is, as a country, Ukraine as a country, as a totality, has progressed. It has moved on. Countries do this. 73% of the population in the runoff election voted for Zelensky. This makes Brexit or the Scottish independence referendum look very, very minor. And so this is a huge win. I have expressed it. I said this to Neil Oliver, the chap who did Coast, basically. Everybody knows him for that, in a British interview, that for Ukrainians to turn and decide that they're going to reject the terrible history of anti-Semitism in that country, that wasn't just during World War II, it goes back to the days of the Russian Empire. That's another thing. People forget this. It's not just a Soviet or Nazi thing. It's something that existed in the country beforehand. The significance of Ukrainians electing a Jewish president is in context, because what happened in Ukraine was a genocide, it was not slavery, is more significant than Americans electing Barack Obama, a black man, as president. This is a huge historic.
True. And the other thing,
that is a huge historic achievement.
I've got to add too, Helen Dale, it's been a pleasure to talk to you, but it also shows how idiotic it is that eastern Ukraine is where most of the damage is being done by...
it's extraordinary and a huge insult to those